They escorted me out of my own company with a security guard who smelled like Doritos and regret. That was 5 weeks ago. But if we're telling the truth, and at this point, why the hell not? The story starts with a microwave that short-circuited in my studio apartment 9 years back. I was reheating leftover pad thai while debugging the first version of our sentiment analysis model. It was midnight. I had a migraine. I was maybe 3 hours from accidentally building something that would later help a Fortune 100 company avoid a billion-dollar PR disaster. Back then, it wasn't a company. It was me, a whiteboard, and a laptop that wheezed like a dying cat. The walls were cracked. The neighbors screamed through drywall about who owed who a vape cartridge. And my idea of luxury was 2-ply toilet paper. But the model worked. And when it worked, I felt this stupid, chest-thumping kind of joy like I was cheating gravity. Within 18 months, my apartment had turned into an illegal fire hazard of employees. We had a caffeine budget higher than our rent. And somehow, between sleepless nights, broken ramen packets, and one weird moment when our backend went viral because someone thought we were predicting the apocalypse, we got noticed. A mid-sized firm swooped in with promises. Funding, expansion, mentorship. Want to honor your vision, they said. We just want to help scale it, so I sold $1. No, that's not a typo. I sold my company for $1. Not because I'm some saintly idiot, but because the deal was structured to give me equity, long-term influence, and most importantly, an airtight clause buried deep in the contract. If I were ever fired without cause, I could buy it back. Same price. $1. I remember my lawyer Mason pausing when he read that line. You think they'll forget? He asked. I laughed. They won't even see it. And they didn't. Not the new CFO, Brent, with his square jaw and MBA-inflated ego. Not Vanessa, the VP of brand alignment, or whatever the hell title she gave herself, who once told me that the word data was too masculine for our pitch deck. And certainly not the board, who barely glanced past the page with the projected returns. Anyway, before I go further, let me be real with you. 95% of you listening right now aren't subscribed. And I get it, commitment's scary. But I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers, like ever in my life. So if you like stories where arrogant execs accidentally hand me back my empire for the price of a gas station coffee, consider subscribing. No hard sell, just a little digital fist bump. Now where were we? Right. I stayed on after the sale, officially as Chief Strategy Officer, unofficially as the last person in the room who still gave a shit. At first, it was fine. They let me run the product team. Brent stayed in his spreadsheet kingdom. Vanessa posted inspirational quotes on LinkedIn and got drunk at networking brunches. But little things started shifting. Monthly innovation meetings turned into brand syncs with no engineers invited. Our R&D floor got repainted in pastel mindfulness colors that gave everyone migraines. And instead of analyzing user feedback, we started running it through tone optimization AI to make it sound more upbeat. Meanwhile, I'd get pulled into meetings just to be ignored. Brent would talk over me with phrases like market synergies and agile recalibration. Vanessa started introducing me as our founding spirit, which is corporate code for this person used to matter. I kept quiet. I took notes. I paid attention. And one night, 2 a.m., just me and a bottle of bourbon and a sinking feeling in my gut, I pulled out the original agreement. Found the clause, still valid, still binding. Section 14C, tucked in right after a page on arbitration clauses and IP disclaimers. My name, my terms, my dollar. Mason was still my lawyer, still picking up when I called. Didn't say much. Just start prepping. He didn't ask what for, he knew. The first thing they killed was the whiteboard. It was one of those old-school monsters, chipped on the corners, permanently smudged with dry erase ghosts from brainstorms past. We called it Bertha. I'd scribbled the entire MVP architecture on it the night before our first pitch to investors. The devs would leave weird cartoons on it at 3 a.m. to cope with death sprints. That board held blood, sweat, and a disturbing amount of off-brand coffee stains. Vanessa had it hauled out during one of her office vibe audits. We're elevating the aesthetic, she chirped. Bertha gives off founder trauma. Founder trauma, that was week 1. By week 4, the weekly product jam had been rebranded as a brand alignment touchpoint. No engineers. No data scientists, just marketing folks talking about how our user analytics platform should evoke trust vibes instead of triggering anxiety loops with aggressive metric transparency. Brent nodded sagely during those meetings, which was rich coming from a man who once said, "Why do we even need a UX team?" Can't we just copy Shopify? The vibe shift was slow, but it scratched at me like fiberglass under the skin. Clients who used to call me directly started looping in their new contacts. Mid-level managers trained in ignoring real issues and thanking you for your patience. Our best data lead, Asha, cornered me in the parking garage one night. "I'm getting offers," she said, whispering like the walls had ears. "Real offers. Double what I make here. What's happening upstairs?" I didn't lie. I said I don't know, but I'm watching. And I was, closely. Engineering floor went from a vibrant chaos of post-it storms and late-night burritos to a graveyard of empty desks and recycled buzzwords. They slashed the NLP research budget by 70% to fund a rebrand campaign that featured a beach ball mascot named Trusty. Trusty, for an AI analytics company. I almost threw my keyboard through a window. They started letting go of redundant roles, which is corporate for anyone not drinking the Kool-Aid. Tried to raise concerns. Brent smiled like he was posing for a toothpaste ad and told me, "You're emotionally attached. That clouds strategic clarity." Vanessa chimed in, "We need to think like a rocket ship, not a museum." She said that with a straight face while wearing a $900 jumpsuit covered in stars. That night, I went home, poured a drink, and pulled the contract from my locked cabinet again. Reread section 14C. Slowly, carefully. The executive is terminated without cause. She may exercise her right to repurchase the asset, as defined in Exhibit A at the original consideration amount, within 30 days of notice, provided that I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. The clause was still there, still legal, still binding. Mason texted me the next morning without prompting. "Still want me watching their filings?" I replied with a thumbs up. Then I printed the clause again, folded it, tucked it into the inside flap of my work laptop sleeve. Not because I was going to use it yet, but because something in my gut, something ancient and feral, was starting to whisper. They were going to push me, and when they did, they wouldn't see it coming. It happened in Q2 review. What should have been a routine numbers meeting turned into a live execution. The boardroom was freezing. The kind of expensive cold that says, "We pay too much for AC because we can." I was flipping through the monthly performance deck when Brent cut me off mid-sentence. "Let's pivot," he said, smirking like he'd practiced it. "Vanessa's got a deck that really captures our evolved brand identity." I blinked. "We're discussing product retention across sectors." Why would, but he was already motioning to the assistant, who dimmed the lights like it was Broadway. Vanessa clicked her Bluetooth remote with theatrical flair. Came a slide titled, "From Sentiment to Synergy, the Next Chapter," and there it was. Our analytics dashboard, the one I'd built in my damn apartment, turned into a TikTok-colored carousel of emojis, gradients, and a smiling cartoon named Trusty, now wearing sunglasses. Vanessa beaming, we're shifting tone. No more data overwhelm. Customers want comfort, simplicity. Friendly vibes. Think Duolingo meets opera. I laughed. Couldn't help it. One loud bark of disbelief. Brent didn't. "You find this funny?" "No, I find it tragic." Silence. Vanessa gave that brittle PR smile she wears when she's about to bite your neck. "We appreciate your passion, but let's not cling to founder sentimentality. That era's, well, it's charming, but we're scaling now." Founder sentimentality, I repeated slowly, like I was tasting a rotten strawberry. Brent turned to the board. "Frankly, need to ask if her role is still aligned with where we're heading. Vision is valuable, but alignment is vital, and we've hit a friction point." He floated it casually, like discussing a logo redesign. I felt it in my gut. Everyone did. A line had been crossed. No decision was made that day. No one stood up and said, "You're out." But the words had been said. The suggestion was in the air like the scent of ozone before a lightning strike. I closed my laptop, sat back, and argue. That night, I drove home in silence. Not angry, not even sad, just cold, detached. Like a switch flipped and suddenly I was watching my own downfall like a nature doc narrated by David Attenborough. At 2:37 a.m., I texted Mason. "Me, pull the documents. If they fire me, we're triggering it. Mason, copy, will prep everything." Then I went to the kitchen, poured myself a drink, stared at the contract, still tucked neatly into my laptop sleeve. Let them come. I'd already paid the price to build this company once. Now they were going to pay for forgetting who wrote the damn blueprints. You ever watch someone gut a house while smiling for the real estate photos? That's what the next 3 weeks felt like. Veneers and buzzwords while they tore out everything that made the company worth a damn. First to go was Julian, our lead UX, been with me since the garage days. Brent called it a strategic sunset of overlapping competencies. Julian called me, voice shaking. They didn't even let me clear my desk. Security walked me out like I'd pissed on the servers. 2 days later, marketing absorbed product design. Vanessa hosted a celebration sync with cupcakes and mood boards. She handed out swag that said trust the shift. That same day, 3 engineers quit before lunch. No notice, just packed up their headphones and walked into the smog like cowboys in a spaghetti western. I tried to intervene once, suggested we pause the reorg until client metrics stabilized. Brent just smiled like a python in loafers. We value your emotional investment, but we're not running a nostalgia project. They froze me out. Every decision routed around me like I was a pothole. Meetings moved without my invite. Slack channels went dark. I'd refresh dashboards and find features I greenlit quietly removed. And still, I showed up. Every day, calm, professional. Like I was watching them dismantle my childhood home, but taking notes for the renovation lawsuit. Then Sam knocked on my door. He used to be my intern. Bright kid. Spilled Thai tea on our first server rack, cried about it, then stayed until 4 a.m. to fix the wiring. Now he was product lead for the mobile team, of the last original hires standing. He didn't sit down, just stood there in the frame like he might bolt. They've got the list, he said quietly. Layoffs, you're on it. I looked up. Who told you? Doesn't matter, it's coming. They want you out before next quarter so they can show post-founder independence in the next investor update. Thank you, Sam. He nodded once, then left like he delivered a eulogy. That night, I didn't pour bourbon. I poured ink. I pulled the checkbook Mason had couriered weeks ago. One slip, blue ink, no flourish. Pay to the order of company name amount, $1.00/100 memo, section 14C buyback signed, dated, quiet power in a rectangle. I placed it in a crisp white envelope. No stamp, not yet, just waiting, like me. I tucked it in the drawer of my nightstand, next to a flashlight, and a photo of the first 5 of us huddled around the original server in a freezing apartment kitchen. We looked stupid. We looked invincible. Let them think they were winning. Let them spend their days high-fiving over layoffs and color palettes. Because when they finally pulled the trigger, that envelope would be the one that blew the whole thing wide open. HR booked it for 4:30 p.m. on a Thursday. Calendar invite with no subject line, just a block of time labeled update. Like I was too dumb to know what that meant. The hallway to the HR suite smelled like someone had panic-sprayed Febreze over a dumpster fire. I walked in wearing my best blazer. No makeup, hair tied back, expression set to unbothered librarian watching your soul rot. The conference room was already staged, Brent and Vanessa sitting side by side like prom royalty for the world's worst dance. The HR rep, Rebecca, was perched at the edge of her chair, clutching a manila folder like it had a live snake inside. Brent spoke first, oozing faux sympathy. We've appreciated everything you've built here, truly, but we feel it's time to move in a different direction. Different direction. Corporate euthanasia. Vanessa chimed in with her usual chirpy spin. This doesn't diminish your legacy. Think of it as a new chapter for everyone. He smiled like she'd just euthanized a golden retriever and wanted credit for petting it first. They slid over the termination paperwork with the efficiency of seasoned executioners. Severance package, insulting. NDA clause, toothless. A per-written statement for my public-facing transition. If I chose to post on LinkedIn, they even included hashtags. I didn't speak, didn't blink, just flipped through the pages like I was checking my grocery list. Becca cleared her throat. We'll need your badge and laptop before you leave the floor. Of course, they didn't even let me return to my office. Security met me outside the room like I was a risk to national security, or worse, the company Slack. He escorted me to the elevator. Big guy, didn't say a word. I handed over my laptop, badge, and access fob. He nodded, stepped back, and pressed the button. As the elevator doors slid shut, I caught one last glimpse of Vanessa through the glass wall, already laughing at something Brent whispered. I didn't punch a wall, didn't scream, didn't cry. I went home. I made tea. I opened the drawer, envelope, check, clause. The next morning, Mason slid the package into a FedEx envelope with hands that didn't shake. Want me to include a cover letter? No, I said, just this. The letter was 4 lines. One line was all that mattered. I'm exercising my right under section 14C. The check is enclosed. Mason sealed it, slapped on the label, and dropped it in the outgoing bin. By the time they'd finished their morning lattes, the package was already en route. My hands were steady. My breath was even. They thought they'd erased me with a calendar invite. But what they'd actually done was sell me back my company. for exactly $1. They got the envelope on a Monday. Imagine Brent skimmed the first line and smirked. "She's trying to scare us," he probably said, feet kicked up on his desk like a man too dumb to know he's already bleeding. Vanessa likely laughed out loud, something nasal and forced, and called it founder drama. I wasn't there, but I know those two well enough to write the script. They waited a day before even forwarding it to legal. On Tuesday morning, legal called them back. Not a junior paralegal either, general counsel. A woman named Marion who speaks in clipped syllables like every word is a billing item. "Have you read this clause?" she asked. "We skimmed. You need to read it." Section 14C, it's enforceable. Brent laughed. "There's no way it holds. That agreement's years old." "It's enforceable," Marion repeated. "There's no expiration language, and more importantly," she paused, "I would have paid real money to see Brent's face at this part." Her team never completed the legal merger. The startup was never fully absorbed. The entity is still alive in Delaware. She owns the controlling share. Silence. "She doesn't want control," Brent said eventually. "She wants to make a point. A scene." "No," Marion said. "She made a point. Now she's reclaiming the asset, and you gave her the key when you fired her. Without cause." By Wednesday, the buzz began. Mason had waited exactly 72 hours, tipped off a few key former clients. Not publicly, just a few discreet, pointed messages. "Just a heads up, I'll be operating independently again soon. Same tools, same team if they want in, better leadership." My phone lit up like Christmas. First, it was Daniel from Medscope. "Heard a rumor. You coming back online?" Then Joya, our very first enterprise client. "You know we'll follow you, right? We only stayed because you were still there." Even Asha texted, "You're the queen. I'm ready to burn the old place down if you are." By Friday, Brent had lost sleep, and Vanessa was rage posting on LinkedIn about the dangers of ego in tech leadership. Irony so rich it should have been served on fine china. Inside the company, panic bloomed. The clause had teeth. The check had cleared. The board was being informed. I imagine the first investor call was a bloodbath. And all I did was sit in my home office, sipping tea, watching the system they'd built around ego and shortcuts start to crack like old paint. They thought they'd buried me. They forgot I owned the shovel. The emergency board meeting hit their calendars like a meteor. Saturday, 9 a.m., mandatory attendance. No breakfast spread. No mimosas. Just angry men in zip vests and women in sharp blazers all staring at the same document. My original sale contract, projected on a screen with Section 14C highlighted like a red flag in a minefield. Brent tried to play it cool at first, cleared his throat, adjusted his cufflinks, used words like technical oversight and unexpected exposure. But the sweat started collecting at his temples by slide 3. By slide 5, his shirt collar looked like a crime scene. "She mailed the check," one of the investors asked, incredulous. "Yes. And you cashed it. We didn't know, you didn't read." Vanessa tried to deflect with buzzwords. "The brand identity remains intact, and our user trust metrics." "Stop," one board member snapped. "Do you understand what she just did? She used your own paperwork to walk out with the engine of this company, and you handed her the keys with a grin." Meanwhile, on the outside, the fallout had begun. Medscope announced they were freezing their Q4 contract, pending organizational clarity. Healthcare AI conglomerate in Boston issued a press release stating they'd reevaluate vendor relationships based on original leadership presence. Joya, God bless her, went full scorched earth, tweeted, "We signed on for her. Not the rebrand, not the cartoon beach ball, her." 60,000 likes. 15 trade publications picked it up within the day. Brent's face went ghost pale when he saw the headline. "Founder regains control with $1 clause. A masterclass in fine print vengeance." Back on my end, I wasn't gloating. Not exactly. I was busy. Mason and I toured office spaces 2 blocks down from the old headquarters. We didn't need a floor, we needed speed, agility. A place with fiber internet and 0 motivational posters. We found it. 5th floor, corner unit. Glass walls, room for 20 desks, 2 war rooms, and the kind of coffee machine that says we're back, and we're pissed. While Brent was still trying to explain his way through a mutiny, Mason was signing the lease. I stopped by the old building on Monday morning, wore jeans and a hoodie just to twist the knife. The receptionist, new girl, probably didn't know who I was, glanced up nervously. "Are you here for the press tour?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart, I'm next door." And I was. Same street, better view, faster Wi-Fi. By the time Brent walked into work that day, 7 resumes from his current staff had already hit my inbox. Sam's was first. His cover letter just read, "I kept the receipts. Let's rebuild," and we would, with teeth. By week 2, my inbox looked like a reunion tour. A chat emailed, "I've got half the old NLP team on a group chat. Just say the word." Julian sent his resume with the subject line, "Ready to unfuck things." Even Beth from accounting, who once gave me a passive-aggressive spreadsheet titled Founder Fantasies vs. Budget Realities, forwarded a revised P&L sheet and wrote, "I never liked Brent. Let's go." We didn't do interviews. We held a war council, 10 of us. Folding chairs, pizza boxes, and a whiteboard that already had operation. "Get the damn engine running again," scrawled in red marker. Sam brought donuts. Mason brought contracts. I brought the clause, framed, and hung it on the wall. We didn't need inspiration. We had rage, caffeine, and group trauma bonding. That same week, a tech reporter from Fastline weekly slid into my DMs. Him, "Is it true?" Me, "Define it." Him, "You bought back your company for $1 after they fired you." Me, "Technically, I reclaimed it." But yeah. Next day, it was front page digital. The Dollar Queen, how one clause sank a tech empire. Vanessa posted some deranged response piece on LinkedIn titled "The High Road and the Low Ceiling." It featured a stock photo of an eagle and quotes from Brené Brown. Her comments were limited within an hour. Meanwhile, Brent tried to restructure his way out of the nosedive. Layoffs, a desperate PR campaign, a sponsored podcast no one listened to. Nothing worked. Stock hit the pavement like a sack of wet cement. The board called an emergency meeting again. But this time, they weren't angry. They were done. Resignation letters leaked before the ink dried. Brent's final memo was unintentionally poetic. "I believe in innovation, even if others don't see the vision." Translation, "I got played and now I'm unemployed." And me, I was busy rebranding. Same name, different face. Our new logo, a sleek, fire-lined phoenix rising out of a smoldering dollar bill. Subtle? Not really. Satisfying? Profoundly. The relaunch campaign tagline practically wrote itself, "Back by demand, built to last." Ex-clients didn't just return, they funded. 3 of them pooled together a bridge round to jumpstart our relaunch. "We trust you," they said. We never trusted them. By the end of the month, we weren't just alive, we were loud. Rebuilt, reinforced, burned and reborn in public, like a TED talk with fangs. And every time I walked past the old building, I'd glance up at the 5th floor where the lights were always dim now. Funny thing about arrogance, it doesn't survive impact. But humility, rage, clauses written in blue ink, they fly. They ambushed me with the keynote slot. I was supposed to be on a panel. Ethical growth in post-hype markets. Boring enough to bring a cactus to tears. But the night before, the original headliner, VC bro turned visionary guru, canceled to chase mushrooms in Bali or some such nonsense. So the conference chair called me. "We'd like to move you to the keynote," she said. "Your story's well. Let's just say people are thirsty for blood." And oh, were they. The room was a sea of lanyards and tension, every seat filled with founders, investors, media rats, and the kind of LinkedIn influencers who write posts about failure as long as novellas. The lights dimmed. My name came up in bold white text against a black screen, the price of forgetting the fine print. I walked onstage slow, deliberate, not smiling yet. That came later. First, I told them about the microwave, the pad thai, the cracked apartment walls, how I sold my company for $1 because I believed in the mission, how that belief got twisted by people who knew buzzwords but not backbone. I told them about Trusty, the cartoon mascot, the layoffs, betrayal. Then I told them about the clause. Gasps rippled like popcorn. When I got to the part where I mailed the check, a guy in the front row whispered "holy shit" loud enough to make his date flinch. And then I did it. Reached under the podium, pulled out a simple black frame. Inside it, a check, $1. Signed, dated, ink faded just slightly from the stress of history. I held it up, slow and proud, like a sword pulled from stone. Flashbulbs went off, phones raised like a digital army. The room, silent but electric. You could hear someone's bracelet jingle in the 3rd row. Then ding, my phone tucked discreetly in my blazer pocket. I tapped the screen. Mason's name, 1 line of text. "Final board resignation, it's done. You outlived them all." I didn't smile. I grinned, wolfish, full, whole. The kind of grin that says, "I told you so," but in legally binding language. I turned back to the crowd, and I closed it out. Always read the contract. Pause. Twice, if you think you're smarter than the woman who wrote it. Mic drop. Standing ovation. Not because I built an empire, but because I took it back. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.